Hello, I am the world famous, celebrated, internationally successful poet Alexander Velki, and this is my Kickstarter failure video. Bear with me, I've got some notes. Thanks. So thank you very much to the 26 people who wanted and put in money for new books, and also to the other 5 who put in sort of a bit of money for an old book or a quid, just as a sort of gesture, because each backing for the campaign, even if it is only £1 or something, that would generate some sort of noise on Kickstarter, which would raise it up the rankings. And that's part of the reason that a sizable proportion, I should say, of the 26 backers were actually people who hadn't backed the project previously, or people who I don't know. So thanks for all of that. Ultimately, we're always going to need about 50 odd people, slightly more if they're all on a lower level of rewards, but that was kind of the general aim. For the first project we got 44, for the second we got about 38, plus a couple of people who put money in but didn't actually want a book, which I have mixed feelings about, but you know, everything happens. Ultimately, I didn't really want this project to succeed outright, to reach the £1,500 target, but neither did I want it to fail outright, so getting lower than about 1,000, because there was always a secret plan up my sleeve for if I got close to it but not close enough, then I could just sort of back it myself for the last couple of £100 under the guise of the Culture Minister of the Land Steering Government. And that would have been a good segue into the sort of narrative behind the 5th book, which I haven't written and may now not write, which was going to be about home and identity. And it was going to be called My Most Serene Republic. So the idea behind that would have been that the Land Steering and Culture Minister had essentially taken state control of my art and was therefore now ordering me to produce art solely for the purpose of glorifying the state of land steering. State-funded artist propaganda. So the 5th book was going to be entirely land steering propaganda, and I may still write it, but I'll need a different narrative of how I arrive to that point if I am to do that. So what now? I mean, the books still exist, at least on hard drives, and I haven't fully edited them. The final running order isn't complete. There's a few poems that would need finishing or rounding off. I'm not now sure of the timescale for that, or whether I will do it, or if I do it, how I will do it. There's 4 options as I see. So one, I could publish maybe next year if I could raise some money after we sell our other house and free up some liquid assets. Obviously I would like to buy a hydroelectric system to generate electricity from my leat. And I would like to do up this building that I'm sitting in now so that it becomes a luxurious 3-bedroom holiday home. I don't know whether the money from the other house will stretch to either of those things, but I'm sure it could stretch to a, say, 50-copy print run for the 2 new books. The only problem with that is that outside of the context of a Kickstarter campaign, it really is hard to generate any interest whatsoever in poetry. So, I mean, I've managed to generate interest enough to sell 26 copies of the 2 new books with this campaign. Outside of a campaign, I would struggle probably to do half of that, so we're looking at about 10 people probably who might buy a copy. But I'm not too proud to work with those numbers. It all depends on where we find ourselves in the new year. The second option would be to delete everything from my hard drives, to throw my hard drive into the leat just behind the water wheel there, so presumably it would be destroyed. Certainly it would be destroyed beyond my capabilities for repair. And I could also issue not fatwa, but some sort of electronic message to everyone who previously bought a copy of Hasdance Volume 1 or 2 and order them to burn them, and I could also burn every remaining copy, that's about 100 for each, of those print runs on a big bonfire over there on the lawn. And obviously that appeals, because I'm not really going to sell any of the remaining 100 copies of either of them now or probably ever. And I do lack storage space in my house. So that's another option. Option 3, maybe going internet only, basically doing what I used to, just posting poems that I think are finished, regardless of what anyone else thinks, on a blog or a website, and just them being there. But to be honest, that's not really that different from just having them on my hard drive, because nobody reads blogs or websites anymore. There used to be, I don't know, favourable algorithms that would mean that if I would post a poem on a blog, somebody actually might end up on that blog just randomly through search or something, or even by following a link I posted on Twitter or Facebook, believe it or not. And they might read it and they might enjoy it. That used to happen. That doesn't really happen anymore now, and I don't think that's because the poems I'm writing are particularly worse. I'm not even sure whether it's an actual cultural change in how people seek out and consume content online. I genuinely think it's to do with algorithms moving more toward things that, you know, basically they've got better. They're more concerned with generating profit, and my poems going on the internet and people reading them, there's no kind of, that isn't really sufficiently beneficial for any one other third party, you know, so it just doesn't really happen anymore. Not to say that I won't do that, I might just do that and you know, post everything on the website, and that's that. The only thing is that in terms of the actual volumes themselves, so these two books being volume 3 and 4, those ways of cataloguing the data, they really are focused on physical products, for better or worse. That's kind of why I have, you know, 33 poems about a similar sort of topic collected together in an order. I don't know if that really works, if there's any point in doing it like that outside of the physical context. So that's the third option, digital only. So we've got sort of admit defeat, try again in the new year on a small scale. That's a sort of sensible, boring option. Delete everything, burn everything, issue fatwas. That's a kind of fun, destructive, but also at the same time a bit slightly depressing option. Then we've got the third option, internet only. Probably the most likely and the least appealing. There is a fourth option, which is that a poem from the third volume, as was to be, in the men's room. So a poem from that called Tractors Turning, which is a very long poem, has been shortlisted this week in a poetry competition, the only poetry competition I've entered this year, and it's going to be published in a book this September by Live Canon, and it has a small chance, mathematically a 1 in 20 chance, but probably realistically a much smaller chance than that, of winning first prize. If it wins first prize, I'll get £1,000. If I get £1,000, I can probably publish these two books, and you know, I'll still probably only get about 10 orders, but I can publish them again on a smaller scale rather than doing 200 copies with the vain hope that within my lifetime at least most of those will sell. I can just publish, you know, a short run of 50, maybe even 30, maybe 20, who knows. Keep going down until we scrape the bottom of this creative barrel. So yeah, that's a fourth. That's an even less likely option. That might happen. Okay, so any of those things might happen, or any of them might not. Who knows? I might die crossing the road tomorrow and be run down by a tedding machine in my cloth hole. So to cut a long video short, I'm going to finish with a poem. So those of you who have put in money for a book but actually don't like poems, you can turn off now. This is a poem that was going to close or possibly open the 6th collection, which would have been the final Hasdall's collection, and may still be. And it's called What If My Next Collection's Successful? This microphone isn't plugged into anything in case you wonder, so. But it's just it's a facade. The whole thing is a facade. What if my next collection's successful and goes on to sell by the suitcase full, and I'm pelted with plaudits and prizes and poets on Twitter at me with praise? And soon I can't open a newspaper for fear my own face will be gurning back from yet another gushing article by Katie Hopkins or Will Self about how I changed their entire outlook on life and death and love and poetry. And I can't so much as pop to Aldi for a bottle of Isla single malt for my nerves, you understand, for my health, without the shop assistant pretending the card machine's broken so I must sign the receipt or their copy of my book or their boobs which are tattooed with the last line of that heartbreaking sonnet I wrote that made the Pope weep on Radio 4, that helped that boxer admit he was gay, and fans broke in Marks and Spencer Cafe, noting with delight my choice of coffee, while anonymous messages flood in from one who says, I know what you're up to, but vows, on one condition, not to tell. And my agent wants to do lunch again, but won't deign to drive to fucking Magor, and paparazzi are always lurking in the hydrangeas behind my kid's shed. No, Tar. That would be my idea